Hey, Who fans, and welcome to the Big Blue Box podcast. My name's Gary.
My name's Adam.
And welcome to episode 376.
Yeah.
Hey, you lot. We hope you're keeping well and safe. We hope you've had a cracking week and that you've all managed to do something Doctor
Who related.
Oh. You beat me on that one.
Yeah.
Welcome to 376. Last week was cool, bud. Last week was cool. Talking through the old Reign of Terror with the first Doctor. It was good to go back and watch some Hartnell, you know.
It was good, mate, yes. The old French Revolution.
Yeah, and it's always an interesting one to watch. Whenever we come round to a review that's got missing eps and like filled in episodes of animated stuff and all that, it's it's always an interesting one because you think, oh God, is the animation cool, or is it retconned, or is it telesnaps? What's going on? So yeah, it was good though. It's cool.
Yeah, makes me think about the next Blu-ray set, mate. Like I keep thinking, I really want a Troughton one. Like I'm looking at my Blu-ray sets on the shelf, and it's missing a Troughton face on the spine. You know what I mean? You got the first Doctor there, and then it jumps to Pertwee, and you got 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I'm thinking, we really need a Troughton on there now. But has he actually got any complete series? Even though they've animated some, have they managed to complete any series yet? I'm not
of Troughton's, or as a series.
As a series, is there any season that they could release as a box set that could be complete, even if they used animated eps that they've already done?
Yeah, there is, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, season 2.
Season 2, yeah.
Yeah, I think the only story that's got some missing eps is The Crusade. And it's probably one other. But I think that's pretty much all wrapped up in a nice little parcel, that one, season 2.
Because I'm just thinking we must have another announcement soon. I mean, I know we've just had the third Doctor one, season 9.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're pretty sure season 20 is bound. It's got to, that seems to have been like on the back burner for ages. Season 20, because we know they've filled extras for that already. So I reckon it's got to be a Troughton one this year, surely. Yeah,
I would say so. The problem is once you get past series 2, I apologise, listeners. I said season then. That's not good, is it? Bad.
I think they do refer to them as seasons. I think we can let you off. I know you hate that word, but
yeah. So series 2, is actually all right.
Yeah.
If memory serves correctly, you can watch through season 2 pretty much unscathed. I think it's only when you get to the Crusade there's a couple of missing eps. I think everything else is pretty sweet. But when you get onto Troughton stuff, though, again, if memory serves, I don't think there's a complete series.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's got anything left intact fully. I think pretty much every. I think the closest we'll get is probably series 6, because that's only got. I think the Space Pirates is obviously a big one that's missing.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think, bar the odd episode here and there, that one's pretty much good to go. So I think a series 6 with Troughton would be good.
Yes.
And remarkably, the War Games, all 10 episodes are intact and all good. So I think, maybe series 6 then.
I would love to see the War Games in Blu-ray quality. If I remember rightly, it's fairly good quality, that one, isn't it?
Yes, it's not too
I
bad.
seem to remember.
Yeah,
like the shots of him going up to the TARDIS, seem to remember look pretty clear. So that would be a good one, wouldn't it?
That'd be a lovely one, actually. Yeah. Because we still haven't had any Troughton, have we? In any kind of restored HD, remastered, anything like that. So I think it's time. I think so, mate. Yeah, every time I look at my shelf, I'm just thinking we need a little Troughton face to join the rest of them. He feels left out at the minute to all the others. A little Troughton face, yeah.
Yeah, I need to see him on the spine.
Yeah, same, mate. Yes. So it's been a fairly light week for us and for the world of Doctor Who. We were saying beforehand it's been light for us. We haven't done anything Doctor Who related, but very quickly, I assume that you have seen, dear listener, the official set pics that we've seen of Ncuti and Millie and stuff that have done the rounds on like the Daily Express and some of the other official blogs and stuff. And I know that we've seen them on set for weeks now with these kind of spoilerific on-set pics that a lot of people have put on there. But these are like the ones that the BBC, we assume, are happy to go out on the mainstream media. It's we think that it's filming for the Christmas special. And because the TARDIS is covered in snow and it looks very wintry and so on. So what do you think to Ncuti then in his in this outfit? Because this is an alternative one that we've seen outside of the official pics that they put out a while ago, which you had the bright orange jumper and that thing. But yeah, he's got the long leather coat and some modern trainers with some classic trousers and stuff. It looks pretty sweet. Yeah,
I must admit, I think the costumes got everyone talking as much as anything else, because we obviously got that official picture a couple of weeks back of like what we assumed was going to be his regular costume, and then we're now seeing these filming pics where he's got this long brown leather jacket and like this stripy top, and like you said, some very cool £200 trainers apparently. I don't know the brand, but everyone's already found them, and they're about £200. And it's weird because it's quite a mishmash what he's wearing. But he does pull it off, I think. I mean, I think that's the thing with Ncuti, because he dresses quite flamboyantly in real life. Flamboyantly, is that a word? Yeah, in real life. He does have he is able to carry off quite outrageous looks, and I think this he is carrying off really well. And just the shots that I've seen of him, like stood outside the church, there's a picture of him stood outside the church wearing the long jacket, and then a shot of him running, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm already getting some really good vibes from this. So the costume outfit, whatever you want to call it, it's quite, I don't know, jumbled together. I mean, like I said, the top's very bright, and then you've got the bright jacket and stuff, but it works. I think it's not a bless it Colin Baker outfit. I mean, I love Colin's outfit, but it's not distracting in that sense that it's really busy. But yeah, it's looking good, I think, and it's exciting to see. It's great to see Ncuti actually out filming, because obviously, like, we've seen quite a lot of pictures of Millie out and about shooting, and apparently Ncuti's literally just finished filming Sex Education. And so he's almost come straight onto Doctor Who right off the back of it. And I'm wondering if that's like, to get his head around, because the character of the Doctor is a big character to get your head into, and you really want to sort of get in that zone. And I'm thinking, I can't remember the character who plays the Sex Education, but he's been playing that role for quite a long time. So to sort of step from one character that he probably knows like the back of his hand into the Doctor, who's quite a complex character, I wonder how he's finding that. It's almost as if he's jumped off one ship straight onto another. So yeah, I hope he's had time to sort of get his head around the role, but I guess he'll just find his feet as he goes along. But you know what I mean? It seems like he's literally just finished Sex Education. I think he wrapped like a couple of days ago, and now he's straight onto Doctor Who, and we're finally seeing him out on the streets filming. So it's exciting. It's just great to see our new Doctor out filming on the streets. You know what I mean? It's like it's real, if you know what I mean.
It's very cool.
It's actually, there's our new Doctor. Yeah, it's very exciting, I have to say.
Yeah, and there's a couple of pics, isn't there, where you can tell that he's in character even between shots when he's not being filmed. He's got this very concerned, stoic kind of look on his face, and I think a lot of actors, they're like that. I think some actors very much are. They can just turn it on and off like a light switch. So as soon as they shout cut, they could go from very serious to just normal and whatever. But I think some actors like to try and stay prepared for the upcoming scene by getting in the zone, if you know what I mean. So you can tell that there's a few pics where they're in between shooting scenes, but he's still got that look on his face. But then there's another one in contrast to that where he's having a right crack with Millie. They're just cracking up at something, which is very cool. So it's really good to see. It's good to see, like you said, him out and about, rocking and rolling, actually shooting some scenes that they've probably done a bunch of stuff already, but to actually see him out is really cool. Because remember when, over the past, I don't know, however long now, And when we've seen like even Chris Eccleston out on those old shoots that we used to see them like in Cardiff somewhere or somewhere in Wales, it was always that buzz that was like, oh wow, it's like new Doctor Who's coming at some point because they're filming. It looks really good. So I know what you mean. Is that kind of buzz, isn't there, that goes with it? So yeah, I love it, dude. And he does look really cool. That costume does look very cool.
And it's quite exciting to think he'll be actually, because we just said when his official costume was announced, it would just be like they'll alternate the top. So he'll be wearing like a darker, bit like Eccleston. One week he'll have a darker top underneath and then he'll have a lighter one. But no, it's like a full-on, completely different costume that he's wearing. So it'd be very interesting to see if he has like a variety of outfits over the series, or, you know, how much they change it up. But this is completely different to the regular costume that we were given a promo shot of recently. I'm still undecided about the tash. Not that it doesn't suit him, because it totally does, but I worry about fake moustaches because I know they're fake. You know, I mean, the Brigadier, bless him, you know, sometimes he had a real moustache, sometimes he had a fake one, and sometimes it was barely hanging off his lip. Now, obviously things have improved a bit since then, but it's an interesting choice to give him a fake tash, isn't it? The effort of having to put that on every day. So I'm slightly worried, because I worry it's going to distract me, because I'll be sat there thinking, it's a bit like someone wearing a toupee to me. It doesn't matter how convincing it is, I'm still sat there and it's going to draw my eye. I'm going to be thinking, well, it's a fake tash, isn't it? So, I mean, I'm sure he's capable of growing one, so I don't know why they didn't just... But again, I think that's because he's jumped straight from Sex Education to this, that they've obviously decided, for whatever reason, the Doctor needs a tash now. The first Doctor to have a tash, I think. So maybe he didn't have time to grow one between filming Sex Education and this. I don't know, but... It worries me. I don't want any wonky tashes in Doctor Who.
Well, I'm sure the moustache department is on.
I'm sure they're on it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the other thing that was interesting about it as well is the backdrop in the TARDIS. So, obviously, because we had that leak recently of what we think is the genuine TARDIS console, that video that surfaced of the new console room. And I was looking to see what was behind him in the filming shot stuff, and it's just like a white sheet, isn't it? And it doesn't even go full length to the floor. It's just like half of the TARDIS length in the back. So I'm wondering what's happening there. Like, are they going to superimpose CGI a backdrop in there? Have they got some new technique of what's happening in the TARDIS, or is it just going to be white? You know, like the cushion box. Is it just going to be a white backdrop? But yeah, it's just plain white sheet. In the back of the TARDIS proper. So wonder what's happening there.
Yeah, the white sheet doesn't go from floor to ceiling though either. There's something at the bottom.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's weird. One would assume, rightly or wrongly, that you would just place a load of green screen cloth in the background there if you wanted to digitally composite that later on. But yeah, it's, I don't know, maybe it might be easy to do. Especially if there are no shots with them actually walking out of the TARDIS. If it's just him standing next to it, then that's relatively easy to, because the TARDIS doors and everything are just straight lines. So I think in the world of visual effects, that's relatively easy to cut out and put your own background in without even green screen. So it's going to be interesting, dude, to find out. Well, because when we watch whatever episode that is next year, next Christmas, you'll be like, we remember that. Yeah. We spoke about that bit on the old pod.
That's right.
Yeah, so it'll be good.
I'm so excited to see those two together. I'm very confused. Ncuti and Millie, I mean, just can't wait to see them on screen. I'm very confused about when that'll be. I mean, this Christmas special, we assume, is this year's this Christmas, we assume. And we think Ncuti might be in some of the specials. He might pop up because there's that scene in the trailer. So I'm just wondering when we're going to actually see him, or how it's all going to play out. Like I said, it'd be interesting when we actually get to see those episodes and to look back on this pod and say, right, so that's what was going on. You know, I can't wait, mate. Yeah, it's very exciting.
You would assume that it would follow previous patterns, wouldn't you? And we'd have David Tennant's Doctor rocking and rolling for 99% of these three specials, and then he regenerates into Ncuti at the end, and then next year Ncuti will kick off his own series. But you never know. You don't know with what's going on with who at the minute, because there's so much chat around why is David Tennant's version of the Doctor back, all this, multi-universe stuff and everything. So who knows what's going to happen? I don't think it's going to follow convention and be your typical thing like that. So yeah, it's going to be really cool later this year, dude. Right. So when does the first special drop? Is it for the Is it the 60th? Isn't it? So that's going to be.
So it'll be November
won't it?
Yeah, I would assume, and then we'll have 3, and then then the Christmas special, I think. Unless
they do the specials leading up to. So I can't remember which way around it is. But anyway, later on in the year. It's going to be very cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do love the fact that Russell's managed to give us all of this stuff, but still we have no clue what's going on, if you know what I mean. Like, I think when Chibnall took over, we sort of applauded the fact he was keeping everything secret, but it got to the levels of ridiculousness that we just didn't have anything to get excited about at all during his run. So he never got the balance right, whereas I feel so far Russell's managed to get it perfect. We're like, I feel like we know so much and yet we know nothing. Like we've got so much to get our teeth into, but we actually have no clue what's going on. It's just like he's thrown a puzzle at us and we're just scrabbling around on the floor trying to put it all together. So I love that. I think so far he's got it just right in terms of keeping us engaged and getting the public, excited about it again.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's exciting times watching the film. I'd imagine we'll get a drip feed of this stuff over the next year, 10 months at least. Or, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I hope. Yeah, I think so.
It'll be good. Anyways, that's the old set picks with Ncuti as a new Doctor and Millie as the new companion, Ruby. Yes. And we'll keep you guys up to date with that stuff. Anyways, if we get any more news on that or anything, we don't really. Anyone that's listened to this podcast for a long time will know that we don't really dive into the whole big spoilerific stuff that leaks out on socials and all that stuff and rumors and whatnot. So we'll keep you up to date with like the official stuff at least. That's that Russell's happy for the mainstream to get hold of and whatnot. So yeah, we'll do all that stuff. Rightio then. We have got a little bit of news to go through, and this will be good news for some people that used to collect a certain thing. Not too long ago, actually. So yeah, that's going to be cool. And then we're on to our review. It's Classic Who all the way forward now. So our review this week is the 4th Doctor story, The Android Invasion, and also give you deets later on in the show about how you can follow and subscribe to the podcast, etc. But for now, dude, let's land the TARDIS and do this bit of news, shall we?
All right, yeah.
So the nostalgic among you might be aware and remember the old Eagle Moss days, which weren't too long ago, to be honest with you. Here in the UK, and I think in some other regions as well, we had there was a company called Eagle Moss, and they put this magazine out, and I think it ran for years, didn't it, dude? It was a good long run, and they did a bunch of different things, but their Doctor Who range was essentially you subscribed to the magazine or you went and picked it up, and it accompanied this very cool little figurine. Now, some of them look absolutely amazing, don't they?
Yeah, some of them look very good.
So others, you could tell that it was either the intern that month or it was a bit of a rush job. Anyway, it was very cool, and regardless of how good or how bad they looked per figure, they did have a fairly decent fan base. I think there was a lot of people that collected these figurines. Unfortunately, Eagle Moss went into receivership or liquidation. When was this? 2 years ago, I think it was. Maybe a year ago. It
doesn't feel that long ago. About a year ago. Probably,
something like that. Yeah. And as a result, obviously, the everything that went with it also went under, which included the Doctor Who figurine line. But as a bit of a lifeline, the company Sci-Fi Collector has picked up all of the unreleased figurines that Eagle Moss had presumably had designed and made and were ready to ship out in the however many months ahead of when they unfortunately went bust. So this company is going to do a bit of a launch event for it as well, and they're also going to put all these unreleased figurines onto their website, which launched literally a few days ago, I think. which is sci-fi-collector.co.uk. We'll put a link to this in our show notes so you can check it out if you're here in the UK. So the first launch event for it is going to take place at the Television and Movie Store in the Maltings Shopping Centre in St Albans this weekend. So if you're listening to this on launch day, which will go out on the 17th of Feb, it's tomorrow, the 18th. So if you're in the southeast or you're near St Albans, it might be pretty cool. So it will feature all of the Doctor's allies and nemesis. What's the plural of nemesis? Nemesises? Nemesi? So these were all the characters that were introduced in 2021 as part of Flux. And Carvanista will be one of them. So he's released number 216. There'll be a bunch of other figures as well, such as the cleaner robot from Paradise Towers. That was one that we knew that was coming.
Yes.
That was actually sounded pretty sweet, but we unfortunately never got. There's also going to be the 9th/10th Doctor's console, and which was only ever released on eBay. And the event is also going to let you know of all the forthcoming releases as well that they're going to do over the next however many months. As well as that store event in St Albans, they've also got other stores in Norwich, Cardiff, Bristol, Cumbrian and Taunton and Hatfield. And those figures will be able to be purchased there, as well as, like I said, their new website, which launched a week or so ago. So, dude, does this float your boat at all? Because I know that you did collect a fair whack of these figurines, right?
Yeah, definitely, mate. I used to get quite a few of these, and I also, because Eagle Moss did other stuff, they did the cool little, what do they call them? Chibi badges or something. They used to do these cool badges, and they did some nice tees as well. I got some, very often people will say, "Oh, whered you get that Genesis of the Daleks t-shirt? I love it." I used to wear that a lot. You'll see it, and I used to, if ever I go on holiday, I'm always wearing it. So a lot of people have seen that t-shirt, and that was an Eagle Moss t-shirt. So I'm really hoping that they've picked up all that stock as well, because I did see someone post a picture of a War Machines t-shirt, and they said it was in this TV movie store. I didn't make the connection at the time. I'm now thinking it is that store. So I'm hoping that they've got all of the remaining stock. The figurine thing I think is great, because I sort of cherry picked them. There was a time when I used to get every single one. And like you said, I started to think, now, some of these are really good and I love them. And then you'd get the next one and it would be like a human figure, let's say like the Jodie figure, and it was so badly painted. You think, God, that they never got the humans ones particularly right. So I started cherry picking like the good ones, and I quite like the look of the Carvanista one. He was one of the ones that was just about to be released. You mentioned the cleaner robot as well, and that was the one. So that was a large figure. So most of them were just small ones to cover magazine. They did occasionally what they call like mega figures and stuff like that. The cleaner robot was one of the big special editions, and it was just on the cusp of being released when they went under. It was literally like, I don't know, it was like the week it was supposed to come out, say. And I was gutted because I was so looking forward to that. The figurine looked brilliant, and I like that. I like Paradise Towers. And I got one from eBay about a week before Christmas from these guys, from Sci-Fi Collector. So they'd obviously sort of bought in a little bit of stock and were testing the water to see how well it would sell. And I got a cleaner robot from them. And despite the absolute nightmare of having it delivered by Every, I did eventually get it. And mate, it is the best figure. It's probably one of my favourite figures in the collection. So when they got it right, and they did do some good stuff. But that one in particular is an absolute banger, mate. It's a brilliant figurine, that is. So yes, it is good news. I feel sorry for people that subscribed to them, because I think a lot of people may be out of pocket and they're probably a bit annoyed thinking, well, I never got my stock, and yet there was stock out there clearly made, ready to ship out. And so I feel sorry for them. I don't know, hopefully they've all got their money back or refunds, whatever. But yeah, it's great news, mate, and it'd be nice for people to be able to pick up and complete their collection and get the figures that they were excited about, like Carvanista and the cleaner robot and stuff. So it's good news, mate. Yes, I'll definitely be picking up a couple of these when they go on their website and stuff, and I want to get a couple of teas as well if they've got them. There was a Earthshock Cyberman one I wanted for ages. It's like the Cyberman bursting through the door from Earthshock. It's a great t-shirt, and I kept sort of hovering over it, but it was about 20 quid and I never bought it, and I'm hoping they've picked that one up, because I've not seen it anywhere since. So Yeah, so it is good news. I'm really pleased they've picked it up. I just hope they've stopped using Every because they are such a nightmare to look on. But yes, it's very good news.
It is very cool, yeah. And just very quickly, the website for Sci-Fi Collector, which is .co.uk, hasn't gone live yet, but they've got a temporary holding page on their current website, and it just says that their new website is due to go live early March now. And but what they did say as well, they've put a couple more details on here to say that, as well as obviously the Eaglemoss thing going bust, they said that now the dust has settled and all the legal stuff has been done. They've now managed to get all of the figures, which is good. And it says that they mentioned the launch event in St Albans and stuff, and they've got a price as well. So the first figure, which is the Carvanista one, that will be $14.99 in store. We will also have stock of the Cleaner robots and TARDIS consoles, the 9th and 10th Doctor, and also the Junkyard 11th Doctor editions as well, which sounds very cool. And they'll also have some samples of some of the other stuff and all that. So, but what they mentioned before that, it says that their website will be the repository for all of their approaching 1,000 lines of Doctor Who merchandise.
Wow.
Old and new. So they say by the time it's ready to unveil, it will become the primary focus for our refreshed and completely reinvigorated Doctor Who activity as we approach the 60th anniversary and return of David Tennant. So I think these guys might be giving Forbidden Planet a bit of a run for their money, dude. It sounds like they've got a ton of stuff coming. And just lastly, it says we also have a special Doctor Who guest joining us for the occasion.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah, it doesn't say that in the press release, but on Saturday the 18th in St Albans, it says, but with all this happening and everything happening a short space of time, that remains unconfirmed at the moment. So they might have somebody popping up to have a little bit of a photo op with somebody from Doctor Who. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on our Twitter because I follow these guys on Twitter and stuff. So yeah, if I see anything, I'll pop it on there. But that could be a cool little event, dude. And yeah, so you're going to get I'm definitely going to get the Cleaner robot.
Oh, mate, get it. Honestly, it's great. And do you know what I loved about the fact that they got it is that they didn't bump up the price. So obviously they have been the only people so far to get that figurine. They could have put it up for twice the price easily, and they probably still would have sold, because every time they put up, I think they seem to get a very small quantity of each. So let's say 20, they sell out within 10-20 minutes, right? So that they know that they could charge more. They could even bung an extra tenner on if they want, 50 quid for that figure. Let's put it on, but they charged the price it was going to be when it came out. It doesn't come in the magazine. That's the only thing I would say. That's not their fault. They probably weren't issued. But the fact that they weren't trying to rip people off, I love that. They're still charging the same price it would have been if you'd have got it from Eaglemoss, obviously minus the magazine. So I like that. It tells me they're a company that are there to supply and not just rip people off. You know what I mean? I like that. And also, I think, and I don't know if you can help me confirm this, but I'm pretty sure there is a connection to the Stamp Centre shop that used to be in the Strand in London. Remember that shop we used to go to, the Stamps? Because they used to have little events. And the reason I say that is I would always pick up a leaflet from them whenever I went there, because they always had all their latest autographs and merch in it. And I'm 99% sure that the website for those was this, Sci-Fi Collector. They're like, obviously before they revamped it. So I think there's a connection to the Stamp Centre shop with these guys. But I could be wrong, but I'm 99% sure this is the same Sci-Fi Collector that I used to buy stuff from, which was the Stamp Centre in London. And they used to have cool little events. They had like Tom Baker used to do a lot of events there. So yeah, I reckon there's a connection there. It could be the same guys. So they know what they're doing, in other words.
Yes. You could be right there, dude. I think
it's sadly no longer there. It was there for years. I think it closed about 2 years ago, but great little shop. And if it is those guys, even better.
Yeah, I remember popping there a couple of times with you, and they had a really good mix, didn't they? Of, at the time, at least, some fairly modern toy lines, but also some really old, nice
they had a
vintage stuff.
Everything. Yeah. Well, what will be telling is if when they relaunch it, if they've got the autographs, because they had their own prints, didn't they?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting if they've got those on there. Then it must be the same shop. Same people.
That does ring a bell now. You've mentioned that. Yeah,
Sci-Fi Collector. Yeah.
So they're making a bit of a comeback.
I reckon.
Which is good.
I think it's them. Yeah.
Well, they've got about 4 or 5 stores littered about. So if you're around any of those, it does say that all these figurines are going to be available in the stores, but just this first one is going to be in St Albans until stocks last. So yeah, who knows? It could be a bit of a comeback, which is cool. Okay,
yeah, definitely.
Okie dokie. No more news to talk about. Let's get on to our review, buddy. What we got?
Yeah, so it's a shame, listeners, you can't see this, but me and Gary are both wearing eye patches and for this review. So it's the Fourth Doctor story, The Android Invasion.
Doctor, what the devil's going on?
An invasion of Earth is going on, Colonel. They've made replicas of you and Harry.
Confounded cheek, how dare they?
The androids are unstoppable, indestructible.
Hello?
Resistance is inadvisable.
What are these androids?
I tell you, they're robots controlled by Stigron.
Science will make the trials invincible. The androids will disseminate a virus. It will cause a contagion so lethal, the Earth will be rid of its human population within 3 weeks. Then it will burn itself out, and the world will be ours.
So you do intend genocide. Something will go wrong, Stigron.
Nothing will go wrong.
If you go into that rocket, your lives will be in deadly danger. Nobody knows who's who around here.
Oh, he jinxed himself, didn't he?
Yes.
Saying nothing will go wrong.
Nothing will go wrong.
Big mistake. Yep. Right, yeah, then, The Android Invasion. It was first, part one was first broadcast back on the 22nd of November on the... It was first broadcast on the 22nd of November 1975, and then part 4 went out on the 13th of December. Wow. It was directed by Barry Letts, written by Terry Nation, overseen by Robert Holmes and Philip Hinchcliffe, and stars Tom Baker, Liz Sladen, and about a dozen supporting cast members. And the synopsis is: the Fourth Doctor and Sarah find themselves in the English village of Devesham near a space defence station. The village seems deserted, the telephones don't work, calendars are stuck on the same date, and white-suited figures are wandering about aimlessly. Who are the Kralls, and what are their plans for Earth? Question mark. Okay, dude. What do you think to the Android Invasion?
I've watched this story a lot over the years, and I just think it is so much fun to watch. So there are so many fun moments in it, especially between the Doctor and Sarah Jane. I mean, you could pick plot holes galore out of it if you wanted to. And I watched it again last night, even though I've seen it and I kind of know it like the back of my hand. I still watched it last night to try and watch it for a critical eye, if you know what I mean, to rather than watching it just for entertainment, just to sort of try and critique it. And I mean, it's ridiculous, really. There are so many things about the story that are ridiculous, but I can forgive it all, really, because I just think it's such a fun watch. It's very entertaining, I mean, it's 4 episodes long. Even though I've watched them a few times, I still found them very fun to watch last night. I wasn't getting bored at any point. It whips along at a good pace. I mean, I do think the first 2 episodes are brilliant. I think they set up a nice creepy tone. You're not sure what's going on. The Doctor seems almost out of his depth. He's sort of full of wonder of like, what is actually happening here? And there's a lot of excitement and build up. And I love all the creepy scenes, like when the people first arrive in the pub and they just stood still and then come into action and stuff. So there are so many it's a great setup. I think what lets the story down is the payoff and the reason behind him wanting to spread this virus and things. So yeah, you could pick it to pieces if you wanted to, but I think it's so entertaining and so fun that I think if you just go along with it, I think it's a really good, enjoyable story. And I also think kids back in 1975 would have loved this. I mean, the first time I watched it, I loved it. And I can just imagine, like, in the playground the next day, like the kids, the scene where Sarah's face fell off to reveal the robot, which a casual viewer in these times would probably watch that scene and laugh hysterically. But I bet you back in the day when kids watched that, they thought it was amazing. And I bet they were all talking about it in school the next day in the playground and stuff. So I think kids would have loved this back in 1975 and found it scary and entertaining and fun. And I still see all of that in it when I watch it now. I just think it's a really fun watch, despite any plot holes. And The biggest thing really that lets it down is the Kralls, but even those I just find really fun. They are like an old married couple bickering around on this spaceship. I had a big grin on my face watching this last night, man. The way they're just moaning at each other, like, "Stadadon, what are you doing?" "Well, I know what I'm doing, you silly," you know. I was just like, oh, these two are hilarious. They're almost like characters from the Muppets, and you know, it's yeah. They're not the best adversary, but yeah. Anyway, I just find it a really fun watch, mate. Despite any faults it may have, I think it's just a good, enjoyable story. Yeah, I've always liked it. I think I always will.
I see. So a thumbs up from you then?
Yeah, it's a thumbs up, definitely, yeah.
Okay, so for me, buddy, I think part 1 I really like.
Yeah,
I think part 1's very, very cool. Yeah, very cool. After that, mate, it loses me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, don't you even find the Kralls funny?
No.
Oh no, I thought you would.
Yeah, I hate.
They're like bickering around. It's hilarious. Woo.
Yeah, I hate saying that, dude. This is one of those stories, and I've honestly tried to watch it with the intent of trying to get into it more. I think this is probably the 4th time I've seen it, probably for that very reason. And every time I finish watching it, I just think, oh, that was just ridiculous.
Oh, I said, I thought you'd like this one. I really did. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where we need a soundbite for some of these sayings that we recycle a lot. But it's one of those stories for me where it's got a really, really good idea. The concept behind the story is so good, and the idea is really good, but the execution of it is terrible. Like like there were some really cool moments in episode 1 which they never play on again, which make the story a really creepy. And you would have thought as well that, considering this is a Robert Holmes and Philip Hinchcliffe kind of thing, that it would be a little bit darker as well and have a little bit more of a creepy vibe to it. But it doesn't. It just, for some reason, Barry Letts just put it across in such a way that when you think it's going to get creepy and stuff like that, it just kind of stops short of the mark for me. I don't really know. I always struggle to it as soon, and I knew it was going to happen as well. I watched episode 1 and I thought, okay, because I watched this all together, all 4 parts.
Right.
As soon as I got to the end of episode 1, I was like, okay, I really like that. That was cool.
Yeah.
Let's just open mind this a bit. Forget the previous viewings. Let's go into episode 2. And literally, mate, 15 minutes in, I'm like, no.
Really?
I just can't. There's something about it that, how do I say it? Like with quite a few other stories, even from Tom Baker's era, there's a few other stories where they're also just as ridiculous. But for some reason, they've got a charm about them and they've got a certain feel. And and they're enjoyable to watch. For some, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. But this story, I just cannot get into it past episode 1, mate. Yeah,
that surprises me because it's got all the lovely location work, and
exactly.
Liz and Tom are just superb together in it, and it's got so many great scenes, like with the Doctor turning evil and Sarah turning evil as an android, and the pub, and is that finger loaded? It's got great moments. I just can't believe you don't like it.
I know, mate.
Not that fun.
I know.
I think this is up there in the same sort of humour level as City of Death. I would say they're sort of, but this has got a slightly sort of darker tone to it as well. Like I know what you mean. There are great creepy moments, like the people in the pub, and I think the bit when the Doctor is the android, I think is quite creepy because Tom is just playing it so cold. And same with Liz, actually. She's great when she's the android as well. Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong, mate. I really do. There is some great scenes in it. There's some great moments in it. And I think the performances from Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen are very, very good. They're really good in it. But I think some of the other parts of the production are just really lackluster in a lot of ways. Like it may as well not have been a unit story. Let's be honest.
It doesn't. I always forget unit are in it. That probably says it all. To be honest, even though I've seen it a few times. Yeah,
and what a shame that. What a shame that this is the last story for for Benton. You know, it's just he just does hardly anything in it, and he's not even that good in it, is he, John Levine? He's just.
Well, I don't think he's very. Yeah, I think he looks a little bit perturbed. I'm surprised he came back, to be honest, because I think he said, you know, in interviews since that he wasn't happy because obviously when John Pertwee was around and during his time of being in UNIT, it was a very happy atmosphere, and he loved John Pertwee, and I think he found Tom completely the opposite. I don't think, you know, Tom didn't really have any time for UNIT, you know what I mean? So John Levine probably didn't like that, and I think it comes across in his performance. He almost looks a bit peed off, doesn't he? He's just sort of stood there, and he doesn't look like he's into it at all. So I almost think he probably regretted doing it.
Yeah,
but it is a shame. Yeah, it's his last story, last appearance.
Yes, exactly. I think Terry Nation, although he's not writing Dalek stuff here, I think he should have just left UNIT out of it completely, because those guys, you know, they could have been they could have just been the regular army or any kind of military unit. There's no
brig.
There's no character there behind UNIT. And they drafted in some old duffer.
Oh, yeah.
Who, what was his name?
I mean, he belongs in the sort of Pertwee era, doesn't he? He's that very posh British.
Yeah, I mean, what a ridiculous person to cast as well, to replace, because I think Nick Courtney had already committed himself to a theatre thing that was going on at the time. And he was miffed anyway, because he'd been messed about. I think they'd booked him for another story, which he agreed to, and then that fell through, that to change production, and then that meant out he lost on some other work. He lost out on stuff like that. So he wasn't best happy with the Beeb and Doctor Who anyway. So I think when it came round to trying to get him for this, he was like, well, no way. I'm not turning down more work for you to mess me about. So, and the guy that they cast, I mean, he's probably a lovely guy. He probably really is. Patrick Newell, who plays Colonel Faraday, but they cast the most obvious...
pompous.
Yeah. So that, you know, so anyway, so that leaves a bit of a sour taste, you know, especially for Benton, you know, I don't know. Anyway, and then the other thing is, the other thing that I think does it for me also is that it's sandwiched between two of my favourite Tom Baker stories. So those two are just, for me, leagues ahead of this one. So Pyramids of Mars before this, Brain of Morbius afterwards.
Yes.
You can just, like, I don't know, like the production on those two and the feel of those two, and they're just leagues ahead. And then when you get to this one, it's like, okay, we're going to keep the momentum going. We've got a great story concept. We've got a great idea. This is going to be cool. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I know you're looking at me thinking, dude, what's wrong with you? Because I know you love this one, but I don't know. It's like... There was a quote. There was a quote, wasn't there? Somebody who was involved in it had said in an interview. I think it was. Was it Barry Letts at the end of the day? I think it was either Barry Letts or somebody had basically said. So Terry Nation had said that he wanted the Kralls to look way different, and he thought that the end design was not that great. And then I think it was. Philip Hinchcliffe then said in an interview that he admitted that the ending story for UNIT was handled really badly, and he didn't like the way that the Kralls delivered their lines behind the mask and stuff like that. And then Terry Nation finally said that he felt his story was a really cool and nice idea, but the end product just didn't fulfill the vision. So that, I think when I watch this, I think those things are in my head. Not because I'm allowing them to influence my enjoyment of it, but I just share the same thoughts.
Yeah.
So anyway, dude, that's my...
I agree about the Kralls, mate. I think they're probably the worst thing in it. Because I think that's the well, the thing is, you do get quite a good, like you said, episode 1, you get a good creepy setup.
Yeah.
But then as soon as they come on screen and the voice, they sound sort of almost too comedic. The masks aren't very good. The costumes aren't very good. They just don't. The design of them isn't very good, and it does take away. I think the atmosphere almost changes to a more light-hearted comedic tone. And it's funny because even though I've seen this quite a lot, I was sat there thinking, this is the Hinchcliffe. This must be during the Hinchcliffe era, because I do get confused which stories are in which season and blah blah blah. And I was thinking, well, it must be because Liz Sladen's still in it, so it's got to be the Hinchcliffe era. But I was questioning the tone of it, because very often, and this is right in the middle of the Hinchcliffe era as well. It's not like it was at the start where they were sort of testing things. And Hinchcliffe, that era tends to be dark and more gothic and has a more creepy, scary tone. Even stuff like Robots of Death, which also has lots of fun elements, has a very creepy feel to it and can be quite scary. And I think, so I do get what you mean about the tone. So after episode 1, I think that sort of creepiness does seem to filter out. And you could almost feel like you're in the Graham Williams era. It doesn't feel like a Hinchcliffe era story. So I get that. But I suppose the only thing I could say in its defense is maybe that was quite nice, because you don't want all the stories to have the same feel. So maybe this is quite nice, plonking this one in the middle and having something a bit more light-hearted. But I do get what you mean, because I did sort of question that at the time, thinking, is Finnish Hinchcliffe like behind this or not? Because this doesn't feel like something from his era.
No, that's weird.
But I think that can be seen as you could take that both ways. It could be seen it was a bit of a light relief in the middle of the series, if you know what I mean. But
yeah, no, really.
I do get what you mean about that, and I do agree about the design of the Kralls. They let it down for me, but I just find them quite funny.
They are humorous, aren't they?
Yeah,
it's more so the bickering and the
well, and the flashing light bulbs behind them as well. The multicolored swap shop they've got going on in the spaceship and that. Yeah, but I mean, if there's one thing I can't sort of forgive, and every time I watch it, my heart sort of sinks a little bit, is the bit with the eye patch at the end, because that to me is just ludicrous, and Terry Nation's got to take the blame for that. I mean, when he removes the eye patch and he didn't need it the whole time, that's stupid. Like, what, he's never itched his eye, he's never washed and had to take the eye patch off. You know what I mean? He couldn't see daylight under that eye patch. For Crayford to be wearing that eye patch all this time and not realise he's actually doesn't need it, he's actually got an eye under there, is ludicrous.
A little bit.
That's the only bit really that I really cringe at every single time, is when he whips it off and he goes, "Oh, I've got 2 eyes," and I'm like, oh, what? But that's got to be down to Terry Nation. He wrote that, so he can't blame anyone else for that. But
no,
and why would they put him in an eye patch? It's just the most stupidest thing.
Yeah, I think it's just a device, isn't it, to have some kind of big reveal at the end that he'd been played like a fool, and
it doesn't make sense. Well, I get the sort of idea is there, but it doesn't. I think he should have tried to something else. That's pretty poor writing at the best of times.
No, I read you. Yeah. It's I mean, it's one of those things that and also, what was Harry doing there as well? That was a bit of a
so I meant to say that. Yeah, I meant to say that when you mentioned it being Benton's last story, because it's Harry's last one as well, isn't it? I think
it is. Yeah. Yeah,
and it is a shame, and they don't really get anything to do, especially Harry. Like you said, may as well could be anybody. Didn't need to be Harry. Yeah. But I think that's actually Philip Hinchcliffe's fault to an extent, because looking at the making of, Harry and Benton, I think, had bigger parts in the story, and Hinchcliffe told Robert Holmes to change it. I know it was written by Terry Nation, but Robert Holmes sort of had input. And he told either Terry Nation or Robert Holmes to make sure that Sarah was the focus of the story, not Benton and Harry. So that was changed during the writing process. So that's why they very much get scaled back in anything they have to do, is because Hinchcliffe wanted it more for Sarah to do. He wanted the companion to be right in the middle of it. So that's a decision that Hinchcliffe made, which I think don't know, may or may not have been the right decision. But you're right, they don't get anything to do. Yeah,
it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about some good stuff though before we get on to some characters, because there are some really good stuff happening in this story. That I really liked the creepiness of when they go into the pub.
Yes.
So it all starts a bit creepy as well when they're in the woods and they see one of the unit guys wandering around looking a bit weird. So he's obviously a malfunctioning android who dives off the cliff and whatnot.
Yeah.
And we have that suspenseful scene, with Sarah tumbling down and, she has to be rescued and stuff like that. And then a bit further on, they go into the village, but it's deserted, right?
Yeah.
It all looks a bit creepy, and that's the stuff that I really enjoyed from episode 1. This kind of, this kind of really suspenseful thing happening, and you weren't quite sure why it was happening in the first place. It kept you sort of in the dark for a while. You just knew that they were being hunted by these androids in the white suits, which were fairly menacing and whatnot. But you didn't really know much else other than that. So when they get to the village, which is this really lovely little village, isn't it, in Oxfordshire somewhere, is it East Hagbourne?
East Hagbourne, yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. And it's just deserted. And when they look around the pub, they can see all the coins, all the currencies freshly minted, and it just, something feels off, which I really liked. And then to enhance that, they see a truck pull up and all these people get off, but they look really weird. And they get into the pub, and it's a bit like they just freeze and wait for, life to continue, if you like. And then the alarm goes off, and then it's really weird. So you think like, okay, are these people now androids, but they've got some sort of mind wipe going on there? They don't know they're androids. They just, that something's going on, but they do, because when the doctor comes out, or Sarah comes out, they all kind of know what's going on. And then the performances of the supporting cast during those periods where Sarah knows that they're androids, but she escapes and stuff, it's really cool. It's just got this kind of uneasy, sort of menacing suspense to it, which is really cool. So that stuff was very cool. Have you done a location thing on this? Because I know you went out to a few places, didn't you, back in the day on your YouTube channel? Did you go to Hagbourne?
Yeah. So I've been there a couple of times actually. So yeah, shameless plug. I've done a video where I go back to the location on my YouTube channel. Go and have a look. So. I did. It's a few years ago now, but it hasn't changed at all. And it is an absolutely lovely little village to visit. It looked exactly the same. The Fleur de Lis pub is exactly the same, although obviously the inside was a set in the thing. But what's great is they have, when you go into the pub, they've got this big photo frame on the wall with about 10 pictures or whatever of filming pictures of when the crew were there. They're black and white pictures. I don't think you'll see them anywhere else. So I assume the landlord or locals took them. And it's just like of Tom and Liz signing autographs. It's Tom and Liz outside the pub. It's Tom and Liz with the landlord of the pub at the time. Beautiful photos. And they've got a big signed picture of Tom on the actual bar itself. It's a shot of him when he gets tied up to the monument in the village. They've got that above the pub, signed, actually hand signed by Tom. So it's a lovely village to visit. Not to be confused with Oldbourne. It's close to Oldbourne actually. In fact, the last time I went there, my friend, we'd had such a good day. We'd had a little drink in the Fleur de Lis, and he said, Oldbourne's only like less than 20 miles up the road. Should we go there as well? And of course, I was like, yeah. So we double dipped. We went to Oldbourne the same day. So it's actually, I think it's less than 20 miles. Don't quote me on that, but it was certainly close enough for us to do both in one day, although it was starting to get a bit dusk by the time we got there. But two great places to visit because they haven't changed. They just feel, you feel like every time, maybe that's why I enjoy this, is because when I watch Tom walking up to the monument or to the church or to the pub, I feel like, oh God, it looks the same. I've been there. And maybe that's why I get such a kick from it, because I love the location. I just think it's also because you said about the creepiness of that scene. I think when you bring it to somewhere like that looks a lot, it makes it slightly more realistic because it's bringing it back to something very rural, so there's probably lots of villages like that people live in. And when they're watching it, they're thinking, oh, that's cool. That could be around the corner, So I like that. Yeah. So just for the benefit, dear listener, if you've not heard of Oldbourne, it's the place that they filmed. It was Devil's End, which was the village in the story The Damons. That's it, yeah. The Pertwee story. And it's very similar. It's got like a village green with a monument there and a church and stuff. So when I first saw this story ages ago, I was like, we've been here before. But then, quickly realised it's a different village. But go and check out Adam's location videos. They're really, really cool. I think they were one of the first videos I watched of yours, actually, back in the day. It is a few years old now. Yeah, it's. I mean, I remember being really proud of that video at the time. I think if I did it now, it'd probably be better because I've learned how to do things like add music and and commentary. But yeah, go and have a look. I think it's still quite a fun video to watch, and it's you'll see the location and how little it's changed and that. So yeah.
Okay, what did you think to the swapping of characters then? Because there was the moment where Sarah Jane was captured. There's a really cool scene where they're legging away from the unit soldiers with the dogs, and the doctor takes her scarf to sort of throw the scent off the dog. She climbs up the tree, sort of throws her up the tree. And then he's legging away, and he's taking his coat off and his hat and everything, and and he's that really cool scene where you think, where's he gone? And then he's been submerged under the water in the river, and then he comes up and he looks, drenched, bless him. And
I was thinking, I bet Tom hated doing that. I bet that was one of the moments where Tom was not in a good mood. But apparently, much to my shock, he insisted on doing it. So Barry Lett said, we'll get Terry Walsh, the stunt guy, to do that. And Tom insisted on doing it, but probably regretted it because, as you may have noticed in a lot of the location scenes, his voice has gone. He's got a bad throat. And that is due to the fact that he did that scene in the water, which gave him a throat infection or something. So you may notice, particularly in the scene when he's talking to Sarah and realises she's an android, you'll notice Tom's throat is very croaky. And that's all because he did that scene. But I'm amazed he wanted to do it. I thought Tom might have been like, let Terry go in there. I'm not doing that. Yeah,
especially as Tom Baker's got a phobia of water. I think he wanted to... I think he wanted to just make sure it was a legit scene, because they could have filmed it from behind and just have Terry Walsh come up out of the water and stuff like that. But you really needed to see Tom's face come out of the water, I think. But as a follow-on from that, he actually went to hospital, didn't he? Because he had swallowed so much of the stagnant water that he had to go and have his stomach pumped.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually. I knew he got affection from it.
Yeah, so I think all good intentions of him wanting to do the scene. But then for the next 2 weeks after that, he just felt dreadful. And like you said, his throat sounds a bit raspy and, bloody hell.
I just wondered, do you think he'd had a few in the pub before and they were like,
Defo.
Okay, Tom, Terry's going to do this, and he's come out, he's got a bit of the old, courage from the old pints. He's like, I'll do this, dear boy, don't worry, I've got this. Maybe he had a bit of Dutch courage from the Fleur de Lis, and I don't know.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because he regretted it.
Yeah, because there's considering he wasn't really a fan of being in water, and also that didn't look like the cleanest of...
No, it doesn't.
I can't imagine he would, volunteer to do that 100% sober. So, that's a very good scene, though. And then when they capture Sarah, they take her into the ship and they do the whole, it's a bit like sort of a body snatchers situation, isn't it? And they make a perfect replica of her. And it's a really cool, but really cool scene when the doctor figures out that it's not the real Sarah Jane. When they go... I think they're in the pub, aren't they, or somewhere, or they're on the run somewhere. And he's got the bottle of...
Ginger pop.
Ginger pop, yeah. And earlier on in the story, Sarah said she finds it revolting, that drink. And he offers some to her and she's like, oh, it's really nice sort of thing. And you can see his face is like,
he realises.
Gotcha. Yeah, he realises. So those scenes are really cool. And then later on, obviously, when the doctor is captured and he's duplicated, and his android version is very creepy because Tom plays the android version of his doctor with just these wide eyes that just stare, really creepy. So those were very cool, dude. The replicant android stuff and the design of the androids. When you see someone's face come off, and it's just like mechanical things zipping around stuff. For the time, I think they look really cool.
I was going to say it's done well enough, I think, for the time. It kind of has that slightly nostalgic feel to it. Like when it happens, you know what I mean? I think, I kind of like it, even though by today's standards it looks a bit ropey. I just think it's, for the time, I think it's quite good,
Yeah.
I think it's just the two eyes on stalks that probably just make it look a bit...
creepy, yeah.
Comical.
Comical. I found them really creepy, actually.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, there would have been some whispers in the playground after they saw Sarah Jane's face come off. Because there's a bit where she gets a pistol out and she starts shooting at the Doctor as he runs off.
Yeah.
And that was done really well because you've got the upper torso of the Sarah Jane android. Yeah. And obviously it's filmed where you can't see below that, but it's someone's hand firing the gun. And that's really creepy. I found that very creepy. It's very cool, though.
I mean, that's the sort of thing that if I was a kid in 1975, I would have absolutely loved that particular bit you just mentioned, where her face falls off and then she gets up with the android face and starts shooting at the Doctor. I mean, God, you'd have been loving that back in 1975. That would have looked incredible, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
As a kid, I mean, I don't know what adults would have thought, but, anyone around sort of 10, 11, would have loved that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was very cool. What did you think to the story of Guy Crayford then and his what's going on with him? Because he was an astronaut, wasn't he, that went out on a mission, gets accosted by the Kralls, and they kind of stitch him up, don't they? In a way, they kind of present this thing to him that there's going to be this experiment and whatnot, but in reality, they want to release a virus that's going to wipe everybody out, and yeah, so he's kind of fighting the fight, if you like, on behalf of the Kralls. And although he has got a bit of, I don't know, he comes across anyway like he's got a bit of a decent heart still, if that makes any sense. But
yes,
because they instruct him to destroy the Doctor and intruders and stuff, and he sort of gives him a stay of execution at least for a while. And cause I think it's which one is it? I think it's is it Stigron? I can't remember which one it is. Just flustered with him and loses his temper. It's like, oh, fine, whatever. I've busy, got stuff to do. So yeah, he sort of delays the Doctor being destroyed and whatnot. But he's an interesting character, isn't he? Because he's kind of sold on the idea by the Kralls, and he's fighting the fight for them. And it's only at the end, with the whole eye patch thing, that he sort of realizes that not good. Not good. We're about to basically lose all life on Earth to these. So anyway, but he was very cool, Milton Johns, as this character. It was just a shame that the eye patch thing at the end sort of dilutes the nice bit of depth that we had to that character. Yeah. So up until that point, so 99% of his performance and his character is very cool. And have we seen Milton Johns before in something?
He's a lovely actor. He pops up in little bit parts in all sorts of things. During the sort of 70s and 80s, and maybe before that.
Let's have a look. Was it a Z car? Yeah, Z cars. Sure.
Yes. Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. He's just one of those actors that used to pop up on the TV a lot, and I don't think I ever saw him in a leading role. He was always a sort of side character, but he's always very good at those characters, if you know what I mean. And I think this is no exception. I think he's great as Cranford, because you do sort of sympathise with him in a bit. He's kind of been a little bit, they've pulled the Kralls have pulled the wool over his eyes, really. He's not a bad person. This comes back to what you were saying about the execution of the idea, really. It's a lovely idea that the Kralls have, made him think that they've saved him and they've operated on him and saved his life, so he's got this gratitude for them and he totally believes their plan and all this sort of stuff. So I like that. He's not a villain or a bad person, he's just deluded, basically. And I think he's beautifully played by Milton Johns. I think it's a really lovely performance. The thing with the eye patch is that when you first see him, because he's got the eye patch, you assume he's going to be, here's the baddie, this is the villain. Because it just, I don't know, I think that's just what you think when you see someone with an eye patch. And so the fact that he turns out not to be, he's actually quite a nice character, but he's going along with this dreadful, quite elaborate, ridiculous plan. It's quite a rounded character. But I think it comes back to what you said, it does get lost in the execution, because the eye patch reveal is it's too silly for words, really.
A little bit.
He's not that stupid. That's the thing. He's likeable, he's deluded, but he's still quite a sort of rounded character. But the bit with the eye patch at the end just makes him look like an absolute idiot, which he's not really.
He's not, is he? No, like you said, he is a rounded character. He is cool. But so a story that we haven't reviewed yet, but one that we've obviously seen a couple of times, The Invasion of Time, the other Tom Baker story.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
He plays Castellan, Kellner.
That's right.
In that story, yeah. So he just had that face. I was like, you've been in Who before. And so he was. That's obviously a very different vibe.
Yeah,
that story.
I've seen him in like Minder and the Sweeney, and he often plays these sort of slightly slimy sort of side characters, but he always gives a nice performance. There is something about him as an actor that I quite like. I feel like he's always going for it, and I also feel like there might have been scenes when him and Tom might have been really holding back the laughter. There's a scene where he was opposite Tom, and I swear he was really trying hard not to laugh. I could be wrong, I could be totally reading into that, but he just had this sort of look on his face like, I don't know. I felt like there was probably bants between him and Tom.
A few bants, definitely.
That's just in my own head. I don't know that.
Yeah.
It just looked like it to me. I just imagine it.
No, I read you. That's probably true. There was a few actors that. Do you know what, mate? I think it's all down to the trip to the pub. At lunchtime.
It's a lovely pub, yeah.
Yeah, because we know that John Pertwee and Nick Courtney used to go to the pub a lot when they were filming together, and as a result, there was loads of times that's been documented where they just fell about laughing during some quite serious scenes. And so I get the feeling that Tom, although by all accounts, just through various interviews over the years and whatnot, I think Tom has always come across as a little bit more standoffish than John Pertwee. I don't know what that's about, but I don't know.
What you mean as in filming with him? Or?
As in filming with him, yeah. He always seems to have this kind of barrier up that made him not as approachable as somebody like John Pertwee, who was very open and warm to everybody. Whereas I think Tom Baker's, I don't know, depends who you speak to and who was interviewed at the time, I think. But some people will say that he was like the nicest guy on the planet, and all that stuff. Other people will say that he was a real moody beep.
I think towards the end of his run, wasn't he? He'd got a bit tetchy.
Yes, but I think, though, that he strikes me as one of those guys, especially back in the day, not necessarily now, but back in the day when he was playing the Doctor, he always comes across to me as, once you got to know him, he was like your best mate. It was just that initial sort of hump to get over, to sort of get in his good books, if you know what I mean. And I would assume that some of the actors that he worked with, the lunchtime pint or three would have very much helped that.
Yeah.
So you can tell a mile off that him and Milton Johns would have had a bit of a laugh, with some other people as well. Probably when he was filming with Ian Marter and some other people. He would have had a few pints and a good laugh. So, but what a time though to have been down the. What a time to have been a fly on the wall though at some of those lunchtime drinking sessions with those guys. Not just Tom Baker, but we know that Pat Troughton loved to drink. So wow, that would have been amazing. Do you imagine just being in the pub somewhere? And then, remember you and I spoke about this recently when we went to that pub in London a couple of weekends ago. And we both said, imagine walking in and just seeing Stephen Moffat in the corner.
Yeah.
Because he was known for doing that, right? Stephen Moffat.
It's a pub that he has been in, a few times.
Yeah, can you imagine back in the day just walking in a pub and seeing Tom Baker in the corner, just having a pint with Philip Hinchcliffe or whoever, and, Milton Johns just having a crack and...
Especially in this story, because imagine going in the fleur-de-lis and you got Tom Baker, Barry Letts, John Levine, Milton Johns, Elizabeth Sladen, just all sat around getting lashed. They're going to do some filming in a minute, because it's a very cosy pub. And we did jokingly check the dartboard while we were in there, just in case it had a scanner. You just can't imagine, can you? I bet they had a blast.
Yeah,
I don't know how long they were in that village for, but yeah.
Well, back in the day, you didn't have all this kind of security going on and cordoning off the entire village, because that would have, if they went to that village now, like Ncuti and all those guys filming, you'd not get anywhere near it. Like it would all be cordoned off. You wouldn't be able to go anywhere near it. Back in the day, you'd be able to go in the pub still, as long as they weren't filming. You could walk around and still see them. I think there's loads of photos, isn't there, with Tom Baker surrounded by kids who lived in a village. And
I think that's that famous picture of him, like surrounded by hundreds of kids signing autographs. I'm pretty sure that's from this village. And because the pictures that are on the pub wall, it's like you said, it's just lots of people villagers there around them, and I'm sure a lot of them still remember it being filmed there and stuff. So, and I like the fact that pubs embraced it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
they still love it.
What a time, mate! To just have gone in there and oh god. Anyway, Milton Johns. I think he played this really well. It's just anyway. What about the just before we move on to Tom and Liz? So your sort of final opinion on the Kralls then is not too bad, but they're just a little bit comedic for a potentially darker story. I think they needed to be darker, in my opinion.
Yeah, they are. I'm conflicted on the Kralls because they do let the story down for me, but I also find them quite funny, if you know what I mean. Just because I said they're like this old bickering alien couple, which I find quite amusing, but they definitely let the story down. I don't really like the design of them. Like, I don't like the outfits or the masks in particular. Look, even though Doctor Who's never really been one, during this sort of time period for having, a budget to make good prosthetics, even by the standards of 1975, I think they look pretty ropey. So, yeah, for me, they do let the story down on a few levels. Design, and they are a bit comedic, and the voices as well, they just sound like a bit, what you're saying about the Brigadier guy, that sort of pompousness, that Englishness. It's it's not very, they don't sound very alien or scary or creepy, so yeah, I'm conflicted, mate, because I do find them funny, but they also are the weak link in the story for me as well.
True. True. Okay, they haven't appeared, have they, in anything other than I think a couple of Big Finish stories.
Oh yeah.
So, and I also find them a little bit unoriginal in a way. Like, there's no real good backstory from them. There's no depth there. It's just a species that just wants to take over the planet, and we've seen that a billion times. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, but I know what you mean on those guys, dude, right then, so Liz Sladen, really good story for her.
Yes, it is.
In this one. She, it's one of those just quintessential Sarah Jane stories where she's not being bossed around. She knows exactly what she wants to do, and she handles herself well. There's even a scene where the Doctor just leaves her to it. We know in episode 1 when they're in the pub, and they're kind of peering from behind the door and stuff. The Doctor's like, right, I'm off because I need to go and investigate this thing. You'll be right, won't you? And before she even has a chance to say, he's closed the door, and so he trusts that she's capable of doing that stuff, which is really cool. And she does, she's not bullied by anybody or anything like that. So, and then it's a really subtle but really good performance when she's playing the replicant of her as well. So I think sometimes in some other sci-fi back in the day with that kind of concept, I think it's really easy to just push it too far and try and overact that you're not the human version of yourself.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, whereas I think Liz Sladen in this, she plays it subtly enough that that's not the real Sarah Jane, but it's not a massive giveaway. Like, if my wife was walking through the room at that moment, she'd look at the TV and go, oh, it's Sarah Jane. She wouldn't look at it and mention, oh, that's not the real Sarah. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, she wouldn't know any different. Yeah, whereas we do,
So I thought she had a really good story, and she's in it a lot as well, which is good. She, like you said, it was. Did you mention that the writing was changed a little bit, so the focus was on Sarah Jane rather than Benson and stuff like that. So yes, really like Liz Sladen in this one, and it's just she's consistently great, especially in this era of Who. Like, she's got such a great rapport with Tom Baker, even to the point where I think they just ditched the script on some scenes, especially the closing one. In this story, the closing scene, they just ditched it and improvised a load of it. So those two are really cool together, especially during this part of it. So I assume you're a fan as well of her in this one.
Yeah, I was going to just echo what you said there. The rapport between her and Tom in this story, I think, is absolutely peak Fourth Doctor Sarah Jane. I think they're just bouncing off each other like amazingly. And yeah, her performance is great. It's a good story for her. And like you said about the subtlety, when she becomes an android, she doesn't overdo it. It's just little movements. Like, I love the bit where she gets out of the casket and all she sort of turns her legs almost as if she's a doll, doesn't she? It's just a real subtle, you know what I mean? It's just the fact she thought, hang on, so if I was getting out of this as an android, I would do it this way. It's such a subtle little difference to make rather than just climbing out of the casket. And, you know, the scenes like at the end when they're in the pods and the doctor's saying, so as long as we don't lose air, as long as this doesn't burn up on entry, as long as that, and she's sort of saying, so as long as that doesn't happen, we'll be fine, you know. And I think it's just some really lovely moments from Sarah Jane in this, and most of them are when she's bouncing off of Tom, and the two of them together. I think they kind of make the story for me. Really, I just find the scenes that they're in. They've always got a good line, like when Tom says, "Is that finger loaded?" and stuff like that. There's lots of good moments from both of them, and yeah, it's a good one for Liz Sladen. She just really runs with it. She really goes with it and gives a good performance. Yeah,
she's very cool. Yeah, and other than a bit of a raspy voice here and there, Mr. Baker is very good in this one, isn't he?
He is good in it. Yes.
Yeah, not so much the big cheeky Colgate smile in this one as we see in some other stories around this time, but still very, very strong in his performance. And no complaints for me, dude, on old Mr. Baker. Just a bit like Liz Sladen. At this point in the game, you can just rely on them to be so good. So I think at this point, where are we now? This is series 12, is it? 13? 13, yeah. So at this point with those two, regardless of the script, regardless of the story, you can rely on those two just to be firing on all cylinders, and they're very good together. And Tom is a big part of that, obviously. So yeah, I like him in this one. He's very good.
Yeah, it's funny with Tom because although he's sort of consistently good as the Doctor, I think throughout his whole run, he does change a lot in his performance. And I think when you go back and watch different stories from different seasons, you really notice it. So when we did the Ark in Space a couple of weeks back, we were saying how, I don't know, it's a subtlety, but it's definitely there. You notice a sort of a brashness in his Doctor in that story, whereas this one with Sarah, he's still got that wonderful alien quality, but there's more of the humour, and the big smiles have started to creep in, and the wide eyes, and, you know, the more of the humour. And I think this, to me, is really sort of peak Fourth Doctor, really, this season, season 13. I think he's really absolutely firing on all cylinders, and maybe that's because he's with Sarah Jane as well. They're such a great team. But then, you look at later stories, you know, the sort of Graham Williams era where it was very comedic, and Tom's with Lala, and that Fourth Doctor feels very different to me if I contrast it to even this Fourth Doctor. You know, if I watch it, the story, I don't sit there and particularly notice it, but you know what I mean? If you put the two together and then you compare that even more to his last season, season 18, where he's quite snappy and broody, and you know, that sort of real sort of zipping around fun element of the Fourth Doctor's kind of gone. It's still there, but not anywhere near as like it was in this sort of season. So I think Tom's really sort of reached like peak, you know, perfection in his performance in this. It's a beautiful performance, I think, from Tom in this story, and I think in this season as a whole, I just think it's great. It's the season that I most want to be released on Blu-ray. Funny enough, we were talking about the Blu-rays earlier.
Oh, definitely, mate.
Season 13, because it's just, I think every story in this one is a cracker. You know, I mean, even this one and Planet of Evil maybe are probably the two that are the weakest in this season, but I still think they're really good stories. It just shows, you know, how strong season 13 is. So I get this horrible feeling it's going to be one of the last sets to be released, but it's the one I want the most. I think it's a great season. So this is not peak story in it, but it's still really, really good fun. And Tom's great in it. He's absolutely great in it. Yeah,
it's very cool. So this, I think I don't want to mention it too much again, but for me, I think that Tom is way better in Pyramids of Mars and The Brain of Morbius, either side of this. Yeah. He seems to be a lot more animated in those stories. And even actually, mate, even the other stories in this season or this series, I find him to be more animated, especially like Terror of the Zygons.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. The other two, and then the Seeds of Doom that we reviewed a little while ago. I think he, I don't know, for this story, he's great, don't get me wrong. He is good. He's just playing it slightly differently. He's got more of reserve the right word? I'm not really sure. He's not holding back at all. He's just playing it in a much more more serious tone. I think, which I think is actually a good thing, you know, because I think if he was just clown-like and laughing all over the place, I think it would add to the ridiculousness of some of the things in the story. Whereas because he's playing it more serious and stuff, it counterbalances some of the more comedic, unintentional comedic stuff, you know, with the Krulls and stuff. So a big thumbs up for Tom in this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And lastly on my notes, dude, as always, can't forget the music. So old Dudders, old Dudley Simpson. A bit sparse, but there was a couple of scenes, especially in episode 3 and 4, got these really great iconic moments, and I always recognise it because when I listen to the the 50th anniversary compilation that they put together years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
They included, didn't they, all of the old classic music from all those stories. And I remember this one when it comes on thinking, yeah, this is a great piece of music. Mm-hmm. He kind of drifts away, doesn't he? Because he went through a bit of an experimental phase where some of his music was more kind of just weird kind of synthy sounds, and he went through that phase. But this one, he's kind of coming back a bit more to actual scored suspenseful music. So yeah, I like the music in this one. There's just not a great deal of it that you remember, but certainly in episode 3 and 4 there's just a couple of pieces of music that sound very dark and suspenseful. So yeah, no complaints there either.
No complaints with Dougie on this one. It's a nice score. Yeah, it doesn't stand out. I'll be honest, it doesn't. There isn't anything where I thought, oh, that's, like you said, it's just nice and it suits the story, and it's just good. Yeah, it's a good score.
It's just good.
I'm looking at. Did I say Dougie? I meant Dudley.
Yeah,
yeah. I'm thinking of Dougie Camfield for some reason.
Oh, Dougie.
Dudley Simpson. Yeah. But yeah. It's a nice score. Yeah. It's just typical Dudley Simpson.
Yeah. Anything else on your notes, dude?
No, I don't think so, mate. No, for some reason. Oh yeah, I've just got July the 6th written down. I think that's just because I like that scene where they, that's again a nice idea that's in the script where the calendar's just got the same date on it. Everything's a replica. But no, I haven't got any other notes, mate. No. Yeah.
Well, it kind of adds in, doesn't it, to the reveal that is a lot larger than what you think it is. So you think that the Krulls have done something weird to the village that's on Earth, and it turns out that they're not on Earth at all. So spoilers if you haven't seen this, listener, but so that's really cool. So you knew that something was coming up later in the story that revealed why these quirky little things were happening, but then you didn't realize it was quite as extreme as they're not even on Earth at all. That's the entire place has been recreated as part of this experiment, quote unquote.
I did actually. I really liked that element of the story. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that before we wrapped up, actually, because I liked that twist in the middle of this isn't Earth, this is a playground, and it just evaporates. I thought that was really cool. And actually, you just reminded me of the other element I liked in the story was that Sarah Jane, because I think that the thing of her being a reporter, I often forget that. It gets mentioned a little bit during the Pertwee era, but kind of gets dropped, I think. So I do like the fact that they remind us that Sarah Jane was a reporter and she had visited there 2 years ago and she knows who Crayford is, and she remembers the pub landlord. So that's quite nice. That's another element of the story I liked, that she sort of had been there, and it kind of fills in that gap of who Crayford is. Oh, I remember him. He was an astronaut, blah, blah, blah. So I liked that element of the story as well. Yeah.
And a few years ago, back in the day, when the BBC had a proper Sarah Jane Adventures website, which was kind of themed around the Sarah Jane Adventures and her at that point in her life, there's some newspaper stories that were on the website, and one of the headlines was that she had travelled to Devesham to cover the story of like weird going-ons and stuff like that. So they reference So they reference it a couple of times, and other things. It's very cool.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Okie dokie, I think it's score time. It's me to go first, isn't it?
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, so I'm going to give this dude a 6 out of 10.
A 6?
A 6, yeah, because it's not middle of the road. It's not that bad. It's a fairly good watch, but I don't want to go over the negatives again. I'd want to try and leave on a positive, of course, but yeah, it just doesn't land for me, mate, this story at all. But the performances bring this up a little bit from a lower score. So a 6 from me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn on it, mate, because I want to give it an 8. because I thoroughly enjoy it. I just think it's really enjoyable. But I also wonder if that's normally an 8 for me is really, really, really good. And there is a lot of plot holes and things that are a bit ludicrous with this story. So I don't know whether I should drop that to a 7.5. I don't know. I normally reserve an 8 for a really strong story. And I think this one, I might do who's the one that always does really specific scores? Like I might go like a 7.8 or something.
A 7.625.
Yeah. I'll just put an 8 in there because I really enjoy it. I'm probably being generous because it does have a lot. You could pick it to shreds if you want to, but I really enjoy it. So I'm going to give it an 8. Why not?
Well, that's it, mate. If you enjoy it.
I do enjoy it. Yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
Okie dokie then. So a 6 from me and a much better score from him. It was an 8. Let's see what our listeners thought over on the socials. So over on Twitter, Will Sanger said, an underestimated and underrated story simply because of the strong quality of season 13. An abandoned replica village with androids is very creepy, with some good action sequences sprinkled in. Benton and Harry as androids is a lot of fun, and you have a very good mystery. Okay, Sam Ash says, I love this one. I had the Target book when I was younger and read it all the time. I'm not sure why that one in particular, but I remember the descriptions being detailed and enjoyable to read. It's an underrated classic. Tom and Elizabeth's chemistry is undeniable. 8.5.
Oh, cool.
Daniel Crinoid, it's a good name, says 10. Tom and Lisa are fab, and it has great atmosphere and a great pace. Sure, the eye patch stuff is ridiculous, but it's a good giggle. I know everyone hates this, but must be my biggest guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure.
Ed Galooly, a good story with an initial great premise. Everyone is on form, some good cliffhangers. A good story from Classic Who's peak years, 7.5.
Okay.
Rob Kelly, short and sweet, one of my guilty pleasures. Doctor Who Home, Owen says, I guess it's all right. The Krolls look great, and I like the aesthetic of the story. The location is one of Who's more memorable villages, and I guess it's nice to have a non-Dalek nation story. However, the eye patch concept is ridiculous. 7 out of 10.
Cool.
Chippy T says, good story this. Nice use of the deserted, eerily quiet village theme. It plays with your perceptions of who is real and who is not. Main cast and villains all give it excellent performances. 6.5.
Okay.
From me. Matt Sewell says, film just down the road from here in East Hagborn. Wonder if the Fleur de Lis is still open.
Oh, I do hope so.
We hope so, Matt. Yeah. One of our writers, Jordan Shortman, says, it's okay, starts off really well and then goes downhill when they get to Earth. The Krolls are a good monster, though I can see why they never came back. Everyone is in good form, even if Terry Nation's script is a paint-by-numbers nation plot.
Very much it is,
Jordan. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
It's a giant rat, says, the first half is very good and sets up a good mystery, but as soon as the mystery is answered in the second half, the story crashes down a cliff and is incredibly unsatisfying. Baker and Sladen are both superb and are easily the best things in the story, but a 5.5.
Kind of agree, but yeah.
Yeah. Paul Jobbo says a mysterious start with scary astronauts who shoot from their fingers and an empty pub. The androids are apparently unstoppable and indestructible, though the Doctor gives Sarah a little shove and her face falls off. Milton Johns is always good. Disappointing swan song for Unit and Harry. Both Harry's first and final story contain a calendar is fixed on one date. 6, overcomplicated alien plans to take out of... Oh, let me start that again. 6, overcomplicated alien plans to take over the Earth out of 10.
Fair enough. Yeah,
that was your fault, Paul, for wording that so longly. So longly? That doesn't make sense either. Cheers, Paul. Sarah Jane.
On the ginger pop.
Sarah Jane, the running Whovian, says, this is one of my favourites. Well written, with great performances, solid 70s Who. The clones and alternate reality village are quite eerie. The Doctor is on form with witty quips and outwitting the Krull. Sarah Jane is fearless and gets stuck in. And always good to see Unit. A 9 out of 10.
9, okay.
And the Who Valley podcast. This is our mate, Paul. Who we've met up with various events and whatnot. He says, hey dudes, hope you had a cracking week. This is top 5 material for me. I love the unfolding mystery and the quintessential English village, which I always thought was Sarah Jane mispronouncing Evesham. This is Tom and Liz doing Sublime Doctor Who. I missed the brig, but still a 10 out of 10. Whoa.
10, oh, cheers, Paul.
Nice one, dude. And lastly, over on the Facebook, Jeff Waddle says, good fun, but really makes no sense, as the Krulls could just send the virus down with Crayford.
Yeah.
And that would kill everyone. And no need for the androids.
Really?
Don't start plot picking. Here we go. And after all those years, Crayford never had an itchy eye.
Doesn't even take it off to go to bed.
Laughable plot, yet Tom and Liz, in their pomp, save it. 7 out of 10.
Cool.
Toby Coleman, I find this story a bit confusing, telling who's who. The setting is gorgeous, though, and it's clear Tom and Liz have great chemistry. The plot has many reoccurring points as Nation's other scripts, but without the Daleks, it feels new. My main complaint is how Harry and Benton weren't utilised well in their final appearance, and how the eye patch makes no sense, but a 7.5. Simon Lockwood, I think the Fembots in The Bionic Woman came out around the same time. Faces falling off to reveal the android truth. Was a big deal at the time, and as an adult, it's an okay story. But with that bit where Sarah's face falling off is so effective, I remember my cousin and I talking about it as 5-year-olds right after.
There you go, yes.
That would have been cool, Simon, wouldn't it? Seeing that back in the day. I was seriously disturbed. 9 out of 10 for nostalgia, 6.5 as a more discerning adult.
Yes, cool.
We're going to take your nostalgic review, Simon. 9 out of 10. Charlie Turner. First time I watched this one, it was the first time I was creeped out by something in the classic series, especially when the Doctor and Sarah go into that bar and the androids inside just look at them with blank faces, as well as the reveal of the Sarah android with its creepy wiring and eyeball design choices. Very underrated, this one, but it's the strongest in Series 13. 9 out of 10.
9. Cool.
Douglas Stanford Grandy says, this has always been a guilty pleasure of mine. Sure, it has plot holes big enough to drive a truckload of ginger pops throughout, but who cares? It's fun. Anything bad you may have to say about it, well, you're probably right, but I've always enjoyed it anyway. It's great to see Harry and Benton again. Sarah does a great job actually rescuing the Doctor on more than one occasion. What better place is there in the universe to feel disorientated than in a disorientation chamber? 7 loaded fingers out of 7. What should we call this thing then? The character's going to be disorientated, so what should we call it? And lastly, Sean Mundy. I really enjoyed this story. I thought the writing was great. Terry Nation's on top form. The effects and costumes are very good. Tom Baker and Liz Sladen, great acting as always. I would give this one a 9 out of 10.
Wow.
Awesome. So I think overall, dude, people love this one.
It's mixed though, isn't it? I think a lot of people agree that it's got faults, but a lot of people enjoy it. So it's a funny one. It's a funny one, this. And
nobody's trashed it either. No one's given it like 1s or 2s. Sometimes you can have a real big sway, but I think overall, let's give this an 8 for the average score, dude.
Well, sounds about right.
Yeah. Rightio. That's the Android Invasion done with. Next week, dude, what have we got for review? Yeah,
so next week, we're on the phone to Terry Nation and we say we like that script you gave us for Android Invasion, but let's go back in time and have some Daleks. So we're going for a Pertwee Dalek story, Planet of the Daleks.
Mm-hmm.
Planet of the Daleks. Now, which one's this? Because I always get confused with Pertwee's Dalek stories. So it's Planet, Death, and all the... this is the one with the big gold Dalek with the torch eye.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. And big furry purple coats or whatever they are, isn't it? Is that one?
Yes, it is.
All right, cool. So Planet of the Daleks next week.
Planet of Daleks, 6-part of this one, if I believe.
Oh, gosh, we've had a lot of 6-parters recently. Whew.
Yeah, so...
Good job I got that TV to myself.
Yeah, so hunker down, get the kettle on, get some cookies, it's all good. Okay then, so Planet of Daleks next week, that sounds good. And I think we'll wrap there then, buddy, for 376.
All righty.
Thank you for listening to the Big Blue Box podcast. That was episode number 376. If you are new to the show, then welcome aboard. It's great to have you here. If you're one of the regular listeners, one of the grizzled ancients, the long timers, then it's good to have you here as well. Regardless of that, make sure that you are following and subscribing to the Big Blue Box podcast, wherever you get your podcast, whatever app you use, as we put a new episode out every single Friday. You can also listen for free on the website, which is bigblueboxpodcast.co.uk. And while you're there, you can check out all of the cool articles and reviews from our awesome writing team. There's going to be a bunch that are going to be dropping over the next day or two. So when you're listening to this, the last couple of days. We're on the socials too, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. There are links on the website. Come and get involved as we chat Doctor Who throughout the week. And we have a very cool free Discord server. Hop in there, chat Doctor Who with lots of other cool Doctor Who fans. There's a link on the website for that. Also, don't forget to remember to check out my co-host channel, especially those location videos over on The Geek's Handbag.
Yeah, The Geek's Handbag. Go and check out that Return to the Android Invasion, I think I called it. Go and check it out on my YouTube channel, also on all the socials, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
And Twitter, yes,
and
indeed.
TikTok.
And TikTok now, apparently, yes.
No, I'm going to delete that soon, then they can all my information.
The official Star Wars thing just popped up on TikTok, so maybe it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Anyway, go and check Adam out on his YouTube channel and the socials. So next week, Planet of the Daleks, get that watched, as we'll be asking for your thoughts as always. Until then, remember,